If the age of a quilt is not known, the fabric can provide some clues. Quilts provide a lot of information through its general style, block patterns, fabrics, any signatures or dates that are printed or stitched into the quilt, and the availability of technology. Recognizing the technology used to make a quilt can provide many clues. For example, sewing machines were first mass marketed in 1856. Machine stitching had to have been applied to a quilt after 1856. Dating a quilt takes good observation skills and matches what you see with your knowledge of printing and dye techniques. Looking at the general style of a quilt is a good place to start. The style of a quilt is a broad classification and can place a quilt within a certain time period. For example, applique quilts, signature quilts, redwork quilts, or crazy quilts. Album or signature quilts were popular between 1840 and 1860. Crazy quilts, made of silks, velvets, and elaborate embroidery, were popular in the 1890s. They often included an embroidered date that may relate to the construction of the quilt. Patterns describe an individual block, such as a maple leaf, a log cabin, or a mariner's compass. The block patterns combined with the fabrics used can provide information on when a quilt was made. When examining the fabrics, look at the colors and printing techniques used to produce the print. Prior to 1810, greens were achieved by overprinting yellow and blue. Overprinting can be recognized by poor registry when the printed lines overlap. Dye colors have changed over time due to fashion, economics, and changes in technology. Color, therefore, provides clues to the date of a quilt. The development of synthetic dyes in 1856 was a significant technological change. Prior to this discovery, people were using natural dyes mostly from plants. Most natural dyes are mordant dyes, which means that they have a coloring agent and a fixative component to help the dye stick to the fibers. Madder is a vegetable dye that can produce various shades of red, brown, black, orange, or lavender, depending on the mordant agent used. A single color can offer some clues, but the combination of colors used over the quilt surface can provide even more information. A combination of madder prints was popular from 1850 to 1900. Turkey red is a color-fast red that was named for the Mediterranean country where it was first produced. Turkey red dyed fabrics retain their color. However, the color does become lighter due to abrasion across its surface. Other red dyes tend to fade to a pale rose color. Indigo is a striking navy blue, but it was one of the earliest dyes, so it does not provide good clues to a date on a quilt. Indigo was used in quilts throughout the 1800s and into the 1900s. A more distinctive blue is Prussian blue, which was introduced into the United States in 1832. Use of this blue that is more vibrant than indigo was popular between 1830 and 1860. Black prints were not very common prior to the 1860s. During the last half of the 19th century, black became an essential staple in Victorian clothing. Early black dyes used mordants that caused damage to the fibers. Black print fabrics of the late 19th century are referred to as mourning prints. They were popular from 1890 to 1925. Pastels and clear, bright colors became available after World War I. Germany had developed dye recipes for pastel colors, but these recipes were kept secret. At the end of World War I, Germany was required to share their patents, technology, and dye recipes, making pastel colors available to American quilters for the first time. The quilts of the 1920s, 1930s, and 1940s were bright and colorful. Some quilts are multi-generational. They may have been started by one person and finished years later, or were made from scraps of fabric from a previous generation. This quilt top is made of 9 patch quilt blocks that date to the late 1800s. The solid green polka dot fabric between the piece blocks and the border print date to the 1920s, indicating that the blocks were made much earlier than when the top was finished. This scrappy four-patch quilt top and the bar quilt combine bright colored fabric of the 1920s and 1930s with the more muted colors of the late 1800s.